Alright, you guys, it is time for another crochet lesson. So this week I'm bringing you a crochet lesson on how to single crochet into another single crochet, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I have this little text box up here so that way I can show you what it would actually look like in a pattern. So you know when you need to do this if you're following a pattern. So for the last, a few weeks ago, I taught you guys how to do this slip knot. And then the week after that, I did a video how to chain. So if you need any of these steps, these first steps, slow down, just watch those past lessons, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to slip knot, and that is not really ever in the pattern. And what we're going to do is we're going to chain. Let me see how many. I've just been eyeballing it for these, so let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We'll just do an easy 20. So your pattern will say chain 20. Well, it'll probably say chain 21 if this were a pattern. So I'm kind of trying to teach you guys patterns as well as crocheting like at the same time.
It occurs to me,
and
I
then,
should have found somewhere to put this wall. So
then we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 21. Okay, so I explained how to do that a couple weeks ago. So there's a lesson for that. And then it will say for row 1, it will say single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Okay. So we're going to do that. And again, this was in a previous lesson. So if you need any of this slowed down, you can do that. Okay. Last week I taught how to do a single crochet into this chain. Okay. Okay, so now we're all caught up with what I've been teaching the last few weeks. So we're ready for this week's lesson now. So what it will say is it'll say something like this. It'll say like rows 1, or it'll say rows 2 through, I don't know, let's say 20. It will say chain 1, single crochet 20, or it'll usually the chain actually goes in the step before, so it'll probably say like chain 1 up here, and then it will say rows 2 to 20, single crochet 20, chain 1. Okay, so we're on that row 1 still. So when we get here, when we get to the end, what you do to single crochet into single crochet stitches is you first chain 1. So this is going to be the side of it. Okay, so that's why we need to do a chain, because that's all these side stitches here. If you don't do the chain and you just go straight into single crocheting in the crochet stitches here in these single crochets, it's going to start going at an angle. It would look more like this. It would angle up. It would be like this. So you need to make that side stitch so that we can do a nice straight even lines on the sides. Okay, so we chained 1. Now what you do is you turn. Okay, and then to single crochet, you're gonna go, and now this is the chain here that we just did, so we're not gonna crochet into that one. That's the chain, you see that? It's the next one here. Okay, let's try to point to it with my needle, and I'll zoom in, because that's the part people get tripped up on, is, you know, where do we start this? So this is our chain that we just did right here. See how it's kind of even like falling off of our main project? Like this is our main project. There's our chain. Okay. And here is our single crochet right after that. It's stacked right here. So this is going to be on the side. So check it out. We're going to single crochet into it. So put your crochet hook underneath both of these loops. This V here is the stitch. It's that one right in there. That's where you're going to single crochet. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. I've of course taught how to single crochet before. We went into that in depth when we did single crocheting into a chain. So if you're new to single crocheting, you might want to go watch that lesson that I did a few weeks ago. Single crocheting into a chain. The only difference with this lesson with single crocheting into a single crochet is it's 2 strings instead of just the 1. So this is the stitch right there. Okay, this V right here. This loop and that loop. That's what people call them. They're called loops, which is important for if you get into like some more okay. So when you get into some more complicated patterns, it will say things like front loop only or back loop only. So these are the loops in those, and I'm sure I'll do a lesson for that sort of stitch at some point. But for just normal single crocheting into a normal stitch like this single crochet, we're going to go underneath both of these loops. That counts as the entire stitch here, both of those loops, and I think it looks like a V. Okay, so here we go. So put your hook underneath both the loops. When we were doing a chain, it was just the one. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both. Again, if that was way too fast for you, there's a whole lesson on single crocheting. All right, so that's how you do it. Now, I did title this lesson "How to Single Crochet into a Single Crochet," but if you are doing some more like fancy stitches, like maybe a double crochet or anything like that, it's the same thing. The top of all the stitches that I can think of anyway, except for the chain. I can't think of any stitches besides the chain that don't look like this on the very top. This V. So really this lesson is how to single crochet into a stitch. That's not a chain, any other stitches. So it's really just the same thing. So I'm just going to go towards the end here so I can show you guys how to do that chain again. Each and every one of these. And I've also seen people like accidentally skip one of those stitches, and so then whatever they're building is like kind of getting like wavy and stuff in the middle, like starts to pucker. That means that you skipped one of the stitches. And one way to find out like is to actually count the stitches, how many that you've done. So if you've done too many or too little, that could explain why your project is looking wonky. Okay, so here we are at the end. Now, this is something that's a little tricky, finding out which is the last stitch, especially if you didn't count. Like I don't really count anymore. I did a lot when I started. But so knowing the difference between that side, that chain 1, that side stitch, and the like last stitch of your project is really important, right? So if you just look at it closely, you can tell that this is just the chain, like it even is on the side here, and then this one is facing us, it's standing right up. So that's the one right there. That's the last stitch. That should be the 20th. So that's the one that we put our crochet hook into for our last stitch. Okay? And you don't want to go in this one here. That's a chain. You know, you can tell the difference. So then you're going to chain 1 and turn. It might say that also in the pattern, chain 1, turn, chain 1, turn. Sometimes the pattern doesn't say the turn part, but it will tell you chain 1 at the end. And that's of course for single crochet. when you get into some taller stitches, it'll say like chain 2 or chain 3. But for single crocheting into single crocheting, it'll say chain 1. And it'll be abbreviated CH1. Okay, and SC is single crochet. And it will go in rows. And if you're crocheting in a circle, if you're crocheting in the rounds, it'll say R&D, rounds, instead of rows, probably. And I do have a lesson on how to crochet in the round, by the way. I do have a lesson for round coasters that you can watch as well. Also, if you want to change colors, if you want to do more striped coasters, I have a lesson for that too. So how to do a color change. Chain 1 and turn. Now, so that's all there is for this week's lesson. Next week's lesson, I'm going to teach how to do the borders of this. How to make borders for coasters. Or you know, for anything. Just how to do those edgings. And it'll just be a really simple single crochet edging. You can get into all sorts of fancy edgings. Lots of books or patterns on the internet will have some really cool, fancy, like scalloped edges. But next week, I'm just going to teach a single crochet border. That's going to be next week's lesson. And then the lesson after that is what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys how to really flatten things out. Last week, I kind of just gave the kind of super quick way to flatten it in last week's lesson, which is just to put these under a really heavy book. Essentially is all there is to it. It doesn't get them super flat, but it does take some of the curl out. You can see the difference between this and this. So that's going to be coming soon as well. So yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this lesson. So I think we'll go ahead and end it because that's all I really wanted to teach was how to single crochet into a single crochet. And I really wanted to slow it down and show you guys what it looks like so you can get those nice, perfectly straight edges on the sides of your project, whether it's a coaster or anything like that. Scarf, tablecloth, blanket. The chain at the end is what's really important. So, all right, you guys. So that's this weekend's lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you have happy crafting. And I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.